I didn't have any like crazy lofty goals. It wasn't like I picked up the phone and I was like, hey, so I was thinking about doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
No. No, like it was literally like the furthest thing from my mind. Um,
Yeah.
I I thought when I started working with him that I was all I wanted to do was just walk. I wanted to
Hmm.
be able to walk around in a store, to walk down to my mailbox. I wanted to be able to do these simple things without my
Hmm.
canes. And so that was the only goal that I had when I
Hmm.
started. And it was one on one. It just happened to be in a CrossFit gym. And, as they say, you set foot in a CrossFit gym, things happen.
Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Dr. Julie Fouché, family physician and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring you information and inspiration to help bridge the gap between fitness and medicine and support your journey toward your healthiest self. This episode is one of a series of Pursuing Health stories. Here, I feature the inspiring stories of regular, everyday people who've used lifestyle to overcome some incredible health challenges. And in this week's episode, I got to share a conversation with Athena Perez, who has a truly remarkable story of weight loss and transformation through CrossFit. I'd first heard of Athena after CrossFit produced a video telling her story in 2018, but more recently, I read her book, Lifting the Weight, which was truly incredible. And I also had the opportunity to meet her in person as she participated in a panel I hosted for CrossFit Health on chronic disease at the 2021 CrossFit Games. Athena is currently the owner of Scaled Nation CrossFit and an advocate for the inclusivity of obese and overweight athletes in the CrossFit community. She's a survivor of child abuse and subsequently has struggled with her relationship with food since the age of 5. But with the help of CrossFit, she's lost over 225 pounds and reclaimed her confidence. I was particularly struck by Athena's resilience and her ability to overcome so much adversity. Her story really illustrates that obesity and weight loss are so much more than just too much food and not enough exercise. Athena has done the hard work to heal the underlying drivers that set the stage to make her sick, and is now sharing her experience in a very real and candid way to help so many others. It was really incredible to be with her at the games and see and hear just how many people were deeply touched by her story. So I hope you enjoy hearing her story here as well. Before we dive into the episode, I do want to make it clear that this podcast is for general information only and does not provide medical advice. I recommend that you seek assistance from your personal physician for any health conditions or concerns. So with that, let's get to the episode. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I am so excited to be here with Athena Perez. I am honored to have you on the podcast. I have just recently been reading your book, and you have an incredible journey, a story of transformation, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as well. And I'm excited just to dig in. Lots of parts that I think people are going to be able to relate to that are listening. And so thank you for taking the time and being willing to share your story in such a raw way.
Oh my gosh. Well, thanks for having me.
So I think, a lot of people in the CrossFit community probably first saw your story or heard of it when there was a video that CrossFit did on you that was about
Mm-hmm.
10 minutes long. And, maybe people might first hear your story and think, wow, she lost so much weight. That's incredible. But really, the more you learn about your story and the more I've been reading your book, the weight loss was almost sort of like this last step in your healing. And there was so much more to your transformation.
Yeah.
You've obviously been through a lot in your life from the time that you were very young, that really laid the groundwork for what, turned out to be sort of your physical body, but there was so much more underneath. So
Yeah.
can you just kind of give people listening a general overview of some of those things that you had gone through and how that affected you later in life?
Mm-hmm. So I'd say that every problem has a root, right? Like it kind of spreads out like this as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
But mine was child abuse,
Mm-hmm.
physical, mental child abuse. Um, Food, interestingly enough, for me it was just I don't know why. I'll never know why food was such a thing with her. But my abuser used food, or rather took it away.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I didn't get a whole lot of it. And um, it caused just a lot of tendencies when you're so young that sometimes you just don't know how they start or where they get stored. But, I was hoarding food at 5, trying to figure out how I was going to keep food hidden so that when I got hungry, I could find a place to have it. So there was just a lot of habits that started really young. And then after 7 years, close to 7 years, I moved in with my mom. And when the physical part of the child abuse stopped, it didn't mean the things went away. It kind of just got worse. I don't know if it was just a time thing. We're talking late 80s. Therapy for kids wasn't quite what it is today. So I think that might have been somewhat of an afterthought. Counseling happened much, much later in life. But I was already, well over 200 pounds by the time I turned 12. I'd only been with my mom a year, and just the weight happened so fast after I moved in with her, because I was eating all the time. You go from being starved for that long, and then suddenly this kid has access to food. Like, what do you think is going to happen?
Right.
So, so I was getting very, very heavy at such a young age because of it. And, kids are mean. I'd go to school and, you get teased. And so you come home and I went to the first thing that gave me comfort. I don't know if it was anything that I was thinking about. It just happened that way. So, this vicious cycle starts. You go to school, you get teased, you come home, you eat, you put on weight, and then it starts all over again the next day and the next day and the next day. And, I graduated high school at over 400 pounds. So, it just had a really crappy start. So as I got older, and the root of my problem was never really addressed. You just start, life happens, very life things happen. I was raped when I was 19, and then went through some really bad circumstances a couple of years later. And then I miscarried my son, and life just compounds. And when that problem, the very first that started it all, was never dealt with, it was never healed. It just created a snowball from there.
A big snowball. And
yeah,
I know you wrote, and like you just mentioned, more things than many people can ever relate to, having gone through at a young age and through your life. But you wrote about in your book, you tried several times to lose weight, not necessarily without first addressing that root. And so you had done different diets or gotten fresh starts moving to a new city, or even at one point changing your name or doing things that, you thought were going to help you get that fresh start that you needed. And can you talk about that process of, just how frustrating it must have been to want to lose weight, but just not, not even really probably being aware of what the root cause and how to address it?
Yeah. I think I always knew how it started. I just didn't understand why it kept happening. It's very difficult to articulate, but stuff gets stored, in the back of your brain. And when something happens, it was something that was learned for me at so young that it wasn't something, I don't even think it was conscious. It wasn't here.
No, it was wired. Like you said, when you're that age, when you're so young, the patterns and the things that you're exposed to are just wired into who you are without you thinking about it.
Right. They say that, as kids develop, right, they are who they're going to be by the time that they get to the age of 10. So if you have all these fickle things that you learned, they get put so far back here that you don't know how to, You don't know why you go to food. You don't know why that is your thing. You don't know why. And a lot of times I don't remember eating. And that was the really hard part, is I didn't realize I was doing it. I mean, clearly I do now, but back then, like, there was just no way to, I didn't know how to fix it.
Yeah. And eventually, you know, you did come to a point where you started to work on, you know, fixing it or trying to figure out what it was and how to address it. And that meant reaching out and asking for help and starting to work with a therapist.
Yeah.
Can you talk about what it was like for you just to even make that decision to reach out for help?
Yeah. So I knew that, I mean, I'd see patterns, you know, like, I think we all kind of have that come to, you know, where we understand that we're doing things. I clearly, I saw the numbers on the scale. I saw that they were continuing to climb, and I knew that I had a problem. Going to a therapist, or kind of making that decision to get mental health counseling, it was probably the toughest thing that I ever had to do, because I thought by doing that, that I had to admit that, you know, like, I was damaged, like there was something wrong with me that I couldn't get under control. And I think that there's something really devastating about that. Like, I wasn't able to do it on my own.
Yeah.
That I needed medical intervention to, you know, help me rewire my brain.
Right. It is sort of interesting, these there's sort of the constructs that we live with, whether it's in our society or whether it's the kind of stories that we tell ourselves about reaching out and asking for help, and just, you know, wanting to, or feeling like we did something wrong, or there's something wrong with us, or we're a failure because we can't do it on our own. And but after we do, I don't know if you had this experience, but I know for me, after I got better at asking for help, you're like, well, why didn't I do this sooner? This is so much better.
No, mine was exactly the same, but it continues even today, though. You know, I still go once a week, whether I need it or not, just because it's awesome.
It's healthy.
Yeah, I love it.
I do think, you know, I think it's obviously much better, like you said, now than it was when you were a child. But I think counseling is such a, you know, we think about doing exercise for prevention and eating for prevention, but counseling can be preventative too. It can be just sort of a healthy way to process the things that are going on in your life, and having space, you know. So,
mental health is huge. Should be severely underrated.
Yeah. So what were some of the things that you started working on with your counselor? I think her name was Jamie. That really started to help make a difference, where you were starting to see, oh wow, this is helping me heal. This is moving me in a positive direction.
Well, we started out with, golly, how did it start? So we started out with, like, everything that I thought of myself. You know, I had all these really colorful words to describe myself, you know, like, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this. And kind of the first part was figuring out where those came from. Like, why are you calling yourself fat and terrible and horrible and lazy, and not realizing that the dialogue that, you know, I'm having in my head is what I'm teaching myself my whole life. And we kind of started, I mean, her method, I mean, and I don't know how all therapists do it, but she had this method that she called the onion method. And it's really, we didn't really start like at childhood and then work our way all the way forward necessarily. We were basically peeling back, you know, as the issues would surface, we would have to rewind and then work through it. And then you work through more and more, and you get deeper and deeper, and it just kind of sparks all these, you know, areas for work. And she had a ton of homework for me over the years, you know. I'd have to work on, how I spoke to myself. I'd have to work through where all these feelings came from. Why was I angry? Why was I pissed? Why was I embarrassed? Why was I just all of the things that were creating this perpetual weight problem?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You talk about how, through that you learned how weight had become a way for you to deal with some of these emotions you were carrying around, like you just said, like fear or shame. And part of your process was learning how to feel and express those emotions. And you talked about also discovering your inner child and starting to do activities just to bring out the inner child and connect with who you were. Can you talk about what that process is like? Because I can definitely relate myself in going through this period more recently in my life of realizing I had numbed a lot of emotions and starting to really feel them again. And I can relate to that connection to your inner child and how powerful that can be.
Mm-hmm. So I think like for me, there was just a lot of stuff that I never did as a kid. Like all those things that you do when you're a kid, you ride bikes, you go visit friends, you color Easter eggs at Easter, just every single kid thing that little kids do, I never did. So, here I am in my 30s, coloring eggs for the first time and playing with Play-Doh and just doing all the things that little kids do. And for me, it was kind of more of a way to, I think there was a lot of resentment, and to fill that resentment bucket, sometimes the only way to fill that bucket is to go and do all the things that you are upset that you didn't get to do, or all these things that you feel like you're missing out on. So yeah, I did a lot of crazy stuff. And it was fun, just to do fun stuff.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I had fun listening to you talk about it when I was reading the book. We should all do more. We should all do more of that. I think like it's fun to be a kid. When you're a kid, you're so I can't talk. You're so uninhibited, and you just do things that are fun. And as adults, we think we have to fit in all these boxes and just do things that we're supposed to do instead of the things that we really enjoy.
That's true.
I know one of the other things that you started to incorporate was really being mindful about how you spent your time in the mornings. Can you talk about what kind of things you started to incorporate and then how that evolved over the years for you?
So part of therapy was making time. So I had to get past this idea that I didn't have time for things. And so I had to be really conscious about making time and working on an intentional schedule. So it kind of, so for instance, it started off as like just goofy habits in the morning. Like I would take time to read. I would take time, like 5 minutes for intentional thinking, or and then I would talk to God, and I would just make time to do these little things. And the idea was, the more you do something, and the more it becomes ingrained, it will become something that you don't have to think about anymore. So as we moved kind of from therapy, the mental part of it, to trying to figure out how to deal with the weight side of it, it all comes down to what you're doing every day, the habits and things that you're doing every day. So that was kind of how I learned habit building, was just doing stupid things every day.
Well, probably not stupid. They were probably really cool.
Yeah, like some of them were silly, some of them were doodling in a doodle book. Some of them were some of the early ones were just, it didn't really matter what it was, as long as you were doing it every single day. And some of them were pretty silly, but it worked.
What about, I know you had mentioned also doing affirmations. What impact did that have on you?
I thought they were silly when I started them, like I didn't think they were actually going to work. I'd stand in front of a mirror and be like, Athena, you're beautiful. And to me, when I first started that, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever done. It's not going to work. Like, I feel like this is total bull crap, and again, when you do it 300 times, 600 times, you do start to believe it. You do start to, it comes off your tongue easier. And you're like, you know what? You are awesome. But that took a long time. It took a long time.
But that daily habit, that repetition.
Yeah, it's just the repetition.
What is your mornings, or what do your mornings look like now?
Honestly, not too far away from what you read. I train at 5 a.m.
So you're usually, an early.
Yeah. The 5 a.m. group of crazies. So I get up, play with my dogs for a little bit, and then I'm training. And then, I get out and I talk to God and I tell him, hey, here's what's on my grid today. Might need a little help here and here, and then just kind of, I do what's called like MITs. They're like my most important tasks. So I really try not to bog myself down with like huge lists like I used to, because the longer they are, the more overwhelmed I get and the more anxious I get. And, I've learned that, one of the things to good health is to try and eliminate as much stress as you can. So those long lists I found weren't helpful. So I just, so I just set like the three, what are the three, what three main big things do you want to do today? And as long as I got those three done, then nothing else mattered. And then I eat breakfast. So I try to eat breakfast within like an hour of working out and try to make sure I started off right. And
that's great. Yeah, I've noticed a big difference myself with implementing more just prayer time and meditation in the mornings. And when I go a few days or a week where I cut it short, I notice a difference big time. It's just like you said, you have to sort of protect that time or schedule these things and prioritize, and stop telling yourself that you don't have enough time for the things that are most important.
You do, right? Like, before I started time blocking, like I always said, I don't have time. I'm going to run out of time. And then I realized, like, you have a lot of time all day. you have a ton of time. When I first started working out, I always used to say I didn't have time to work out. And then I realized, crap, I have way more time than I thought I did. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's all how you want to spend it, I guess.
So true.
Okay. So you did a lot of work with your therapist, you said, then you started moving into this, focusing more on the weight. And you eventually, you described in your book, reaching this really, really low point where you were facing almost to the point of scheduling bariatric surgery. Can you just talk about kind of that particular time, and then what happened then that made you decide, no, I'm not going to go forward with this?
So part of it is I have met people along the way that had gotten the surgery, and there was a couple where it worked good, and but there were more that didn't than did. I had met friends along the way that said that if they, could go back and do that decision over again, would it have been the same? And they would have said no. I thought that I got into like the bottom of the bucket, when I got the referral for bariatric surgery. I thought that was like the world telling me, like, you're not capable. This is the end of the road. So if you don't get this, you're going to die.
Wow.
And I think it's hard to get that referral. and especially from a doctor, like you trust them, they're a doctor. So when they're giving you that referral, you're like, okay, that's it. I can't do it on my own.
Yeah, I think that that's so important. And I don't know if I've thought about that perspective before of that message that sends just by recommending it, saying, I don't think you're capable of doing this on your own. That's a sort of a subtle way of, maybe not a subtle way, maybe a very loud way of that message, which is really damaging to sort of your own confidence or belief in yourself.
I think that's how I took it. Like that was it. You get to a point where somebody's saying, hey, you need surgery, then you're not capable of, again, it's kind of like that second thing. Not only did I have to go get help for therapy, but now they're saying, hey, you need to go get your stomach cut open or you're not going to be able to get this under control. So it was devastating. I went through the
your
whole
health
thing.
like at that time?
Oh, it was awful. It was awful. I wasn't mobile at all. Like walking to the kitchen was a ginormous task. Taking a shower was exhausting. I didn't really go anywhere. I had friends do my grocery shopping for me. I might have left my house once a week. I didn't do anything. I stayed here and quality of life was horrible. I wasn't breathing. I was on I had to get put on like a CPAP machine. So I was on that. Yeah. I was on like 2 different kinds of thyroid medication. I was on hydrocodones, and I was popping 4 or 5 of those a day just to manage the pain in the legs and the joints, and it was miserable.
And you wrote about a Christmas, I think this was around the same time, where you couldn't go to travel to be with your family. And what was that like?
Well, gosh, like it was the first holiday that I had spent, by myself. And I mean, I don't know. I think I could have fit like in a first class seat. I don't think that was my problem, or I could have bought in 2 seats. But I couldn't figure out how I was going to get from my car and down to the gate. Because, like, I mean, if you think about it, right, that's a long way.
Long walk, yeah. Like if you're struggling to get to the kitchen, that's a long walk.
Yeah, like I couldn't get past that. I thought I was going to die before I got to the plane. So yeah, I was stuck at home, and I thought about like it just, that surgery date for surgery was just barreling down on me like it's happening. That was first, it was like a month away, and then it was 3 weeks away. And then Christmas is kind of like when it hit. And I don't know, like I don't think I had spent enough time really looking at what I was risking by having it done, the complications that can happen. Just having that surgery is no joke, and it changes you biologically forever. And I feel like I just hadn't spent enough time, like Athena, is this really what you want to do?
It's a big decision.
It was really big. And I was watching a bunch of YouTube videos and watching all these people and all their horror stories. And I was like, I can't do it. I just can't. And then maybe there was a part of me that was pissed, right? Because I was like, these doctors are saying, well, you need this or you're not gonna live. And part of me was like mad, right? And I was like,
I just want to prove them wrong.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's amazing. So I think it was shortly after that you then heard God speaking to you. And showing you what could be in your future. Can you talk about that?
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
It was crazy. So, I spent just hours on my couch watching these goofy videos, and I just broke down. Probably like it was one of the roughest nights that I remember in my life. I had just gotten to the point where, like, I just wanted to die. I just wanted it to just be over, you know, and you know, I had gone back to church, and I'm a woman of faith, and I'm like, God, I didn't, there was nowhere else for me to go. Like, and I was pissed off at God, and I was like, I was thinking about my life, and I'm like, I can't believe that you would put me through all of this. Like, why? And then here I am struggling with my weight, you know, and at the time I was like, you know, now I'm having to fix something that didn't even start off as my fault, you know, but here I am. I was just mad and mad that I had to deal with all this, you know, and so I prayed and I prayed and I prayed, and I felt like it went on for hours, and I woke up and, or I had a dream that night, and it was, I saw this gym. Started off with like little silly things, you know, like there was this guy, and then there was this gym, and I didn't really recognize like the type of gym, because, you know, it wasn't like the typical gym. It was, it didn't have any equipment. It didn't have any. So I was trying to figure that out. And then it just kept going on. So from Christmas into New Year's, I was having these dreams every single night, and they just kept getting bigger, and they had all the same things, but, you know, like the following night it would add something else. And then the following night it would add something else. It just kept picking up where it left off, basically. And then by the 7th night, this was going into New Year's, I was like, okay, I felt like, I hear you. You know, like, I feel like you're trying to tell me something, and I don't know exactly what it is you're trying to tell me, but I hear you. And then I felt like it was just the greatest blessing. I looked at it like a miracle. It was the greatest blessing I could ever ask for, because I felt like I woke up on that 7th day and like I knew what I needed to do. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I didn't know. It was this now is a life that I could not have imagined on my own. And I didn't know what all that was going to look like, but I could see it. I could feel it. So that's just the direction that I headed.
It's amazing. So what were the first changes that you started to make after that?
Food, like my nutrition, was the very first thing that I changed, and call it God inspired, call it whatever you want. But it was essentially getting rid of everything that wasn't meat, veggies, nuts, seeds. Yeah. I mean, it was essentially, you know, the poster on my wall, with maybe the exception of beans and eggs, but it was pretty darn close. And, you know, I wasn't concerned about, you know, calories and getting crazy. All I was told to focus on was just eating these things. That's all I had to do. And that's all I did do. And we were down pretty considerably after 1 month of just changing the food. And then I didn't start exercise right away, just because I couldn't. I thought, well, if I got a little weight off and I could start moving around a little bit better, then we'll attack that front. So it was like a month and a half later, I had reached out to this person that I kept seeing in my dreams, and reached out, and he kept getting tagged. Like it was, you know, like a typical Instagram, Facebook account. And their box tags them like, here's our WOD today and blah, blah, blah. And I had reached out to the coach that he used, and I'm like, I don't know why, but this is where I'm supposed to go. And so I reached out to him, and I didn't have any like crazy lofty goals. It wasn't like I picked up the phone and I was like, hey, so I was thinking about doing CrossFit.
Yeah.
No. No, like it was literally like the furthest thing from my mind.
Yeah.
I thought when I started working with him that all I wanted to do was just walk. I wanted to be able to walk around in a store, to walk down to my mailbox. I wanted to be able to do these simple things without my canes. And so that was the only goal that I had when I started. And it was one-on-one. It just happened to be in a CrossFit gym.
Okay.
And, as they say, you set foot in a CrossFit gym, things happen. And,
that's the hardest part. You just have to set foot and the rest is history.
Yeah, the rest is history. And people would see me. I'd come in and they're like, hey, Athena. It was after 2 weeks. They were like, you need to join a boot camp class. And I was like, no, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm never like, you guys see me. I'm walking around on these canes. Like, I can't do all that stuff that you're doing. And they're like, it's okay. You can modify, you can scale. And of course I didn't know what those words meant, but I was like, all right. And then I tried my first boot camp class 3 weeks later, finally gave in and said, yeah, okay, I'll do it. And the rest is history. That's how it started.
That's amazing.
And then I just went from there.
That's amazing. What has it been like for you to be part of a community? I know I've heard you say before, like just even embracing the word athlete for yourself was a big deal.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about both, right? Community. Community was something I had never had. I never had whatever that was. I didn't have a group of people that I could count on or that would text me and say, where are you today? Why aren't you here? I just didn't have that kind of support system. It was brand new, never had it. And so I honestly think that was kind of part of the secret recipe for me, was just the community aspect, just having friends, just people that I saw every day, people that were holding me accountable, and people that missed me if I wasn't there. Like, hey, where are you? Hey, I had to do the workout by myself this morning. It was stuff like that. And it was really special for me because it was something that I lacked, that component of it. And then, you get in and you start learning about CrossFit and you start going all in, right? Pretty soon I had
the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Pretty soon I had my headband, I had my nanos, and I had, I had lifters, and, pretty soon I had all these little things that was like, yeah, I'm a CrossFitter. And we were doing this in-house competition, and, they were dispersing the t-shirts and whatnot. And I remember when I got mine, I'm looking at it like this, and I gave it back to the owner, and I was like, you gotta be shitting me. I'm not putting this on. And it was basically just a t-shirt that said athlete on it, is all it was.
Yeah.
And I had a really, really hard time with that word because it felt, it felt fake. It felt like I was not an athlete. Here I am, there's still a couple 100 pounds to lose. Who am I kidding? I don't want to wear that shirt. People are going to laugh and it's going to be embarrassing, and I'm not doing it. And it took months and months for me to see myself that way. Because that's how we refer to all of us in CrossFit. We are all athletes. We just happen to be athletes that all have different needs, different capabilities, but it took a long time. to be okay with that. And then of course I embrace it. Like,
yeah. Now, what does it feel like now when you hear that or you say it?
It feels weird that I ever had a problem with it. Like, why? Like, why did you ever have a problem with that word? But I get where it comes from. You know, when I thought of athlete, I would think of like Olympians, like, and all of the people in my CrossFit box, they were athletes, not me.
But now you are.
And now we are.
Yeah. So, you know, you obviously have lost a lot of weight since you've made these changes. But I'd love to hear too about the other improvements that you've noticed in your health, whether it's how you feel, the things you're able to do, any medications or chronic diseases that you've noticed improvements in.
Yeah, I call myself a beautiful work in progress, right?
We all are.
You know, the first 200 came off relatively easy in the grand scheme of things. It's this last 110 that has been the nightmare of my life. But it's definitely not just about weight. It's all the things that you gain because of good health, right? All the awesome, amazing, wonderful side effects. So after a year, I got off my CPAP after a year. The thyroid medications were gone after that first year.
Wow.
And I think it's more than that though. It's capacity. It's being able to go upstairs. Yeah. I still get winded when I
we
do
all
stuff.
do.
You know, like
I do too. I went up 2 flights of stairs today and I got winded.
I think it's just what else I can do. You know, I went from getting 1,200 steps on my Fitbit to averaging, you know, say 9 to 12,000 on any given day. That's 10 times the amount of activity. So it's little things like that. Just being able to go places, being able to walk in a grocery store and not have to ride around in one of those little carts. It's the little things that just snowball. Not being afraid to,
you're snowballing in the other direction.
Yeah, exactly. They're just going in a different way, but yeah, that's how it happens.
What accomplishments are you most proud of in the gym?
I think for me, it was just allowing myself, like believing that this was something that I could do and actually making it work and making it a part of my life is something that I am immensely proud of. You know, this
and
is
at 5 in the morning, nonetheless.
Yeah. Like what I was proud of, that I could WOD at 5 a.m. That pretty much is the highlight of my life.
That's amazing.
Just incorporating, not just working out, not just CrossFit, but actually learning how to apply these things and making it a part of every day. You know, it's kind of like, you know, you change your life, you change your habits, you know, you might be working on, like for me, right? This weight that I still carry around, there's consequences to bad behavior for a really long time. It's not going to be something that you know, get off in a week or a month. It can take time, but I couldn't see this not being a part of my life anymore. And the really cool thing that happens because of it is it starts trickling into other parts of your life. Like my mom, right? 4 years, and she finally is trying CrossFit.
That's,
you know, to see her now get on the bike, or to watch her learn her first burpee, and all those things that were like first for me that would make me cry. Now is I'm seeing her as her coach, and that's a cool thing.
That's super cool.
There's nothing
That's
that
amazing.
when they're your mom and your dad, your parents, your family. My brother has now started CrossFit, and he's improved his life since March is when he started, and he's down almost 40 pounds. And it's just amazing that it's starting to snowball out there.
All around you. Yes,
Yeah,
that's incredible.
yeah.
The impact
That's
that you
neat.
have. Wow. And I know you're also really passionate about helping educate trainers and helping educate others about how to be better coaches for larger athletes. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that and some of the things that, someone who hasn't been in a larger body might not be thinking about as they're training?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, you're like, I'm not even sure how this started. It's just kind of evolved that way, like,
Yeah.
I think it was, I went through a lot of stuff, of my own. And I think my eyes were definitely opened, when I came back to CrossFit, because I had to take a year kind of hiatus while I had double knee replacements.
Mm.
And so when I came back, it was the little things. It was walking back into a box and not having someone understand how to work with me, not only because I was bigger, but because here I have these conditions, and I just didn't have that support.
Mm-hmm.
And when I thought back kind of on my CrossFit journey, there was a lot of times. And of course, the community by this time was sharing stories with me, right? And it became a thing where I felt like this needs to get more attention. And the reason why I think it can become a problem is because, you have a lot of coaches, and it's not their fault. That's the problem. You don't know what you don't know, right? If you've never lived in a bigger body, you don't know some of the challenges that larger athletes have. And again, no fault of the coach, but I think that if they had exposure to what those challenges are, that it might change how they're coaching that person. So like, say, for instance, on larger athletes, especially when you have like skin fold, meaning like you have overlap on your belly. There are a lot of movements that larger athletes with that belly overhang are not going to want to do. It's not because they can't. It's going to be because this is probably going to be super, super embarrassing, and they're not going to want to do it because of that. Yeah. So if the coach knew that every time they put so-and-so on a rope, that person was going to freak out, and it was going to put them in an embarrassing, compromising situation, because what they were trying to avoid was the entire class hearing that belly flap when you're doing the jump rope. So it's things like that where I feel like this is what's going to drive somebody out the door and not come back. They're going to get put on a box that's too high, or they're going to get put on a rope way too soon. And these are things that athlete is not going to tell you,
right.
I'm not saying it doesn't happen. There are a lot of boxes out there that I've talked to that have fostered these types of cultures where that athlete can go talk to their coaches and their box owners about anything. And I think, man, I've seen quite a few of them, and they're amazing.
Yeah.
But not everybody has that luxury. So the goal was, how can I bridge some of these? Because I'm not afraid to talk about it. I'm not afraid to get on a rope in front of 6 other coaches and demonstrate what that is, so that they can understand what I'm talking about, so that, so they can take that back and just be more mindful. It's not, we're not saying, CrossFit isn't the most, inclusive community or methodology in the world. I do believe that it is. What I'm saying is, these bodies are a little different. So if you have visibility on some of these things, the people aren't going to leave. They're not going to get embarrassed, and they will stay. So it's just making it a better experience. How can we make a better experience for that, so that we don't have to have bad experiences that way.
Absolutely. I think that's true for all type, whether it's larger bodies or whether it's
Anybody,
athletes
right?
who have who've just undergone chemotherapy, and there's, things that you wouldn't know unless you've been through that yourself, or a whole variety of situations. And that's what, like you said, I do also agree. I think CrossFit's the most inclusive fitness methodology out there, but we can always be better. And that's what makes us inclusive, is we always want to learn, and always try to be better, so we can be more empathetic, so that we can try to understand what our athletes are going through, and make sure that we are a place where people want to be and are not feeling afraid or embarrassed or anything like that. That's amazing. Well, I want to start wrapping up with 3 questions I ask everyone at the end of the podcast.
Okay.
The first one is, what are the 3 things that you do now that have the biggest positive impact on your health?
Oh, wow. So something that I started doing like maybe 2 years ago was just drinking more water. I didn't realize like how horribly that affected not just my health, but my skin, so I do this little game every day where I put like this bucket of water on the counter. I fill it full of fruit. It starts infusing in the morning. And then, when I know I get down to the bottom of the little jar, then I got all my water for the day. So that has been huge. Sleep, just learning to go to bed on time was a huge thing for me. And not just like going to bed on time, but like being very disciplined about it, and not realizing the impacts of not getting enough sleep and what that does to your mind, what it does to your body, training, all of it.
Makes everything harder. Great.
And then, I don't know, let's see, maybe a third thing. Well, moving, CrossFit.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's great. What's one thing that you think would have an impact, but you have a hard time implementing it, or something you're working
on? Well, actually, this is something that my coach tells me all the time. He's always reminding me to make sure that I'm incorporating non-CrossFit activity into my life. There's nothing wrong with being a balanced athlete. So like, he's the one that's constantly encouraging me to like get out on my bike and go for hikes and go for walks. And there's all kinds of things as CrossFitters. We don't have to, it doesn't have to be a CrossFit workout every time that we get out there. There's a big world out there, and there's tons and tons of activities that we can supplement that I think would be super beneficial for me if I took more time to do them.
Totally. Yeah. What do you want to use your fitness for? That's the question.
Yeah.
But it is hard, right? Like you said, time is limited, and we like being in the gym too with our people and our community. So last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
That's a great question. What does a healthy life look like for me? I've struggled with that, because defining healthy has always been a struggle for me. What does healthy mean? Well, I think healthy is different for all of us. Healthy for me was never a size. It was never some magic number on the scale. For me, it was being able to do all the activities that I want to be able to do. I don't want to get tired and have to take a nap by 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I want to be able to, go to the fair and walk the 10 miles that you're going to walk that day and not have my feet hurt. Health for me means that I'm not in pain. So whatever size that was and whatever that number was on the scale, I was going to be okay with that, as long as that's how I felt. That I could wake up in the morning and be like, yeah, like I feel awesome. I feel great. And that it never had to be anything other than that for me. Am I there yet? No, not yet.
It's a constant work in progress, like you said.
A beautiful work in progress.
It is a beautiful work in progress, and you are well on your way. You've done so much hard work, and it's incredible to just hear your story and see that hard work paying off, and just see it, like you said, in your smile. And when you tell yourself the affirmation of, yes, I am pretty awesome, or I am pretty amazing, the smile on your face, it's really cool to see. So thank you so much for having the courage and making the hard decisions, doing the things that you did to get here, and then sharing all that story with us, the hard parts and the awesome parts.
Oh, well, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Thanks, Athena.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you or someone you know has a story to share on a future episode of Pursuing Health, please write me at info@pursuing-health.com. If you enjoy listening to the podcast, please also consider subscribing and giving it a 5-star rating on iTunes. It really does help to get the word out to more people.